What is clear is that someone shot him and essentially murdered a universe, a vast imagination. It's like somebody casually murdering Proust. Better than food, man. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Better Than Food Book Reviews. I'm your host, Clifford Lee Sargent. Great to see you as always. Hope you're doing well. Get that coffee. Today's episode is brought to you by the Ridge Wallet. These things are awesome. They are light, sleek, industrial. I've been roaming around with this thing for a few months. It's been great. It's just a little bigger than your credit card, and yet it's so strong. It doesn't fold or awkwardly bulge in your back pocket, and it has seriously changed up my whole pocket situation and freed up some much needed space, you know what I mean? It's designed to easily fit into your front pocket. It's like, why have we made the transition from large flip phones to smartphones, but we still carry the same wallet? Holds up to 12 cards, plus room for cash on the back. It also has RFID blocking technology that protects you from digital pickpockets. I don't even know how that works, so that's definitely a plus for me. There's over 30 colors and styles to choose from, including carbon fiber and burnt titanium. This one is my go-to. This is the matte black titanium. It's dope. The durable material means that each wallet comes with a lifetime warranty. You could buy this one wallet and carry it for life. You're literally never going to need another wallet. It's the last one you'll need to buy. And then it just looks badass. Like, it's cool. This would be an awesome and affordable Christmas present. If this wasn't enough to win you over yet, check out their 30,000 five-star reviews. In fact, the Ridge team is so confident you'll like it that they'll let you test drive it for 45 days. You can send it back for a full refund if you don't love it. Get 10% off today with free worldwide shipping and returns by going to ridge.com/betterthanfood and using the discount code betterthanfood. The link is below. Thank you so much. Today is The Street of Crocodiles and Other Stories by Bruno Schulz. This was originally published in Polish in 1934. It's been on my list for years. This has been recommended to me for a long, long time. I've seen the loose stop-motion animation adaptation by the Quay Brothers, which is excellent if you haven't seen it. And I'll link to a clip below if you haven't had the pleasure. Really strange, kind of disturbing, ethereal, creepy, beautiful, sort of legendary stop-motion animation. It's really amazing. This book is composed of 2 short story collections, I think, which is basically everything available that he's written. He wrote a manuscript, like a novel, I think, called The Messiah, which was lost in the war, World War II. And I think it was rumored that he sent a copy to Thomas Mann or something like that. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that correctly. Yeah, it's this kind of supposedly masterpiece. If any of y'all stumble upon something out there that is called The Messiah in Polish, DM me on Instagram. I think I know where to take it. Street of Crocodiles is part of Cinnamon Shops, which is the original title of the collection published in Poland. And this version also includes Sanatorium Under the Sign of the Hourglass. Now, I can't say I prefer one to the other. They both have their strengths. It's not a children's book or a book for children, but Street of Crocodiles takes place in a point of view that seems situated in childhood, to an extent. The eyes of a child with the language of an adult. To paraphrase his fellow Stefan Głowacki in this podcast I've linked to below from Sherds Podcast. Excellent episode. Great podcast, by the way. The writing kind of has that fresh wonder at everyday objects. Things that are discarded or forgotten have vitality. There's this very emotional quality to the whole book. This quiet loneliness mixed with occasional exuberance and awe. The fragility of it all is profoundly tragic, and of course, Schulz's life mirrors this. Sometimes it's dark and somber, and sometimes it's actually very funny. Normally in the stories concerning the man's eccentric father, the narrator's eccentric father, who is in the process of dying throughout the book, it seems. At one point, the narrator kind of describes how he's constantly dying and then coming back, but in kind of a diminished form. So they're getting used to the idea of his death, and it starts to just gradually become so pathetic that, you know, they kind of just... They become accustomed to the idea of him dying and going away and then coming back again as something kind of ridiculous. At one point, he turns into a crab. But what's funny about it, I know it's dark, but at the same time, it's also kind of hysterical because this crab distinctly resembles his father, and they can definitely tell, you know? So what that means, I don't think it's ever really like explicitly stated, but there's something about this crab now living in the house, wandering around, scuttling about. And I think the uncle is trying to step on it, which terrifies the rest of the family members. You know, it's kind of absurdist. It's funny. It's very Kafka, right? And I think, yeah, I mean, Schulz translated Kafka, and, you know, there's an obvious nod. I guess what I'm trying to get across is for all the darkness, for all of the, like, the lonely, quiet desperation thing going on, he's also got a pretty good sense of humor. Bruno Schulz was an artist, art teacher, author, and Polish Jew from Drohobych, which is now part of Ukraine. Interestingly, the author of Venus and Furs, the last book that I reviewed, Leopold von Sacher-Masoch. He was about an hour and a half away in what is now Lviv, Ukraine. Drohobych was part of Austrian Galicia when Schulz was born. That territory seems to have changed hands tragically many times. While he was known as a writer in Poland, he never became very famous during his lifetime and seemed to prefer sort of a quiet inner life while working as an art teacher, although I believe he hated that job. He seemed like kind of a timid individual. He sort of seemed like somebody who was very risk averse. He actually had the opportunity to escape apparently during World War II, but he was too frightened. He didn't want to. He translated Kafka and did illustrations for Vital Gombravich's Ferdy Dirk. I reviewed Pornographia a while back, which is a great book. So some of you may already know the tragic end of Bruno Schulz's life. Eventually, Drohobych was invaded by the Soviets and the Nazis. The Soviets wanted to kill the Polish. The Nazis wanted to kill the Jews. Schulz was a Polish Jew. To survive, he worked for an SS officer named Felix Landau and painted murals in Landau's house for his children. Schulz was murdered by an SS officer. He was shot in the street while he was carrying a loaf of bread back from the store, I think. Not by Landau, but by another SS officer. And the story isn't clear either. Some say that the murder was retaliation for Landau murdering a Jew working for the other officer, who in turn murdered Schulz. Another version is that it was a shootout in the street or something. I don't know. I suppose it could be any number of things. But the fact of the matter is that Bruno Schulz was murdered by some cowardly piece of shit. What is clear is that someone shot him and essentially murdered a universe, a vast imagination. It's like somebody casually murdering Proust. He was murdered on November 19th, 1941. So, it's a few days away. Maybe it'd be a good day to look into the Street of Crocodiles and start reading Bruno Schulz. I mean, thank God we have what we do by him, right? There's so much layered in Schulz's writing that it really ought to be read slowly. Even more slowly than the pace that I read. And I took this over the course of, I read like 100 pages and then kind of stopped for a bit and then went back and read the rest. I probably couldn't have read it any faster. And even now, I don't feel like I got enough of what's contained therein. You know, it's an enormous book in a way. It takes place in a fictional city loosely based on Drohobych, and it concerns the inhabitants. It has been said that Schulz was seeking his lost childhood in his writings. One is frequently reminded of this, as a great deal of the stories deal with his family, and specifically his father, who owns a fabric or textile shop and is in the process of dying. And Schulz's father, again, I got this from the podcast, died in, I think, 1915, which clearly had a tremendous impact on him. And that was also the year that World War I started, and the territory that Schulz was inhabiting started to suffer from a kind of upheaval. But his father is a total eccentric oddball. So his father, at one point, orders all of these exotic bird eggs and keeps them in his bedroom where they eventually hatch, and he has this sort of kingdom of birds. One of my favorite moments was a somber and sad story about the narrator visiting his father. I think the narrator's name is Yosef, and the father's name is Jakob. But anyways, Yosef visits his father Jakob in a sanatorium in a different country where there's a time difference, but it's a special kind of time difference. Even though his father has already died at this sanatorium where his father is now, in this different country, the time is set back. But along with the time change are all the different possibilities of time. So his father is actually still alive in this other country, and the outcome could be different. And the narrator stays with him in this shabby, depressing sanatorium. He's like sleeping in the same bed with him, and it's kind of just like crumbling to pieces, and it's sort of like their whole world is collapsing. Deeply depressing, very, very dark. Of course, for personal reasons, that resonates in a really heavy way. Plenty of great stuff in the book, but that was a pretty good one. It's very, very dark, but probably all too reflective of the environment and time Schulz lived in. Surrealism and dreams infiltrate the narratives, which are extremely loose and tend to kind of drift off into very long descriptions of sensorial detail related to objects or plants or landscapes or things. It was very difficult for me to keep the narrative thread. I often lost it completely. I don't think one should read Schulz for the narrative. That's not his focus. His focus is an evocation of sensation, of mystery and meaning within things that are unexpected. Schulz seems to be enamored with descriptions of material. So what did I dislike about it? Quite a bit, actually. Truthfully, this was frequently a very boring book for me. It's overwritten, full of this kind of romantic poetic style, kind of flowery. I feel so bad saying that because it's clear that he's a brilliant author, a brilliant man, was a brilliant mind. without question. But the style is very, very particular. Personally, for me, I think it's way too descriptive for its own good, and generally burdened with an exhausting, gushing enthusiasm for things that just aren't that interesting to me. I like Bruno Schulz. I think he was extremely intelligent, and there's lines in here that are just brilliant and far better than anything I'm ever going to write in my life, and better than plenty, if not all, of what's being written currently. I think he was more than just a competent writer. He was probably a genius, absolutely capable of conjuring the depths of human experience and emotion out of the seemingly unimportant and forgotten thoughts and discarded everyday items. Like Jonathan Safran Foer, author of Everything is Illuminated, wrote in the introduction, the idea we see in Schulz of the writer sifting through the trash, tandeta, I think that's the Polish word, maybe, to find and reassemble mutilated fragments of cast-off mythologies or systems of meaning would become a model for generations of writers following the upheaval of World War II, post-communism, and even post-colonialism. And I think Foer actually wrote a book where he took Street of Crocodiles and I think pared it down, like cut out pieces and reassembled them to make a new book or something. It sounded like an interesting project, considering what I just said that I disliked about it, which is just the excess, the wordiness. I should probably check it out. Schulz is totally Proustian and able to describe things that are seemingly impossible to describe in writing. I think Schulz is brilliant, and you should read him, but I don't enjoy reading him. Much of this for me is near incomprehensible. It's too much. It's like a dish with way too many flavors working against each other. In this case for me, more is less. Leaf blowers. A curse upon your houses. I think I've discovered my limits of non-narrative surrealism with Schulz. And personally, I prefer more structure and less words. But it is beautiful. Just for now, for example, the yards are drowning in nettles and weeds, tumble-down moss-grown sheds and outbuildings are up to their armpits in enormous bristly burdocks that grow right to the eaves of the shingled roofs. The town lives under the sign of the weed, of wild, avid, fanatical plant life, bursting out in cheap, coarse greenery, toxic, rank, parasitic. That greenery glows under the sun's conjury. The maws of the leaves suck in seething chlorophyll. Armies of nettles, rampant, voracious, devour the flower plantings, break into the gardens, spread over the unguarded back walls of houses and barns overnight, run wild in the roadside ditches. It is amazing what insane vitality, feckless and unproductive, lives in this fervid dab of green, this distillate of sun and groundwater. From a pinch of chlorophyll it draws out and extrapolates under the blaze of these summer days that luxuriant texture of emptiness, a green pith replicated 100 times onto millions of leaf surfaces, downy or furred, a veined, translucent verdure pulsing with watery plant blood, giving off the pungent herbal smell of the open fields. This is just a piece about weeds. This, I think, is it both serves as an example of why I dislike it and also why I like it. The sensorial detail is abundant and beautiful, but when I'm able to comprehend so little of the narrative, and I keep getting lost in these waves of excessive description, it becomes really annoying, and yeah, I hate to say it, boring. Like watching a gorgeous landscape, but this strong gust keeps trying to blow your hat away, and you can't take a moment to just marvel at the view. There's no space. Now, Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow is similar in its level of overwritten description, but there's a plan with Pynchon that begins to form, a very carefully orchestrated system at work that you begin to somehow sense throughout the novel. It's wonderful, by the way. With Schulz, it's as if he's searching and searching and searching. It's kind of like a man lost in the middle of waves of dreams and sensation. It's a little too foggy for me, This book seems to resonate deeply with certain people, and maybe it's those who had a childhood that seemed far more colorful or beautiful than the drab monotony of adulthood, which, hey, I can totally understand. The narratives in this book are innocent in a way, but there is something deeply complex in what Schulz evokes from his stories, the undefinable depths of the mind experiencing childlike wonder. That's something that, for me, now that I stop to think about it, often seems almost impossible to recall, to remember, especially growing older, So if there's anything that can resuscitate that point of view, that kind of fresh vitality of the world around you, that's better than food, definitely. So I think this book is better than food for some people. And in fact, there's probably a high percentage of the folks who enjoy this show that would love this book. So I highly suggest you check them out for yourself. For me, it didn't get there. Sometimes there were passages that were without question impressive, rich, layered with a variety of textures, kind of like Nabokov if he went off the deep end. Incredible in their imagination and construction, but again, it's like too much of a good thing. So you should read it. Definitely fans of Kafka. I think that's the most obvious one. Schulz directly seems to reference the Metamorphosis. And also those who like Proust, Borges, magical realism, strange tales of seemingly drab or ordinary things or places that become fantastical. If you're a fan of Too Loud a Solitude by Bohumil Hrabal, I forget how you pronounce his last name. I reviewed that a while back for patrons. Great little book, and it reminded me in some ways of this. Mostly just the whole focus on used or discarded objects. That's a story about a man who he runs a trash compactor. He destroys books for a living. It's a great book. Also, there's a great documentary about Bruno Schulz by Deutsche Welle that I've linked to in the description below. And again, Sherds Podcast, excellent podcast, has a great episode on this one. And I think that's a fantastic conversation with a lot of information about Schulz and his life and his work and everything. So yeah, please check it out. Cool. Coffee time. For those of you who are new, I take all the names of the patrons on Patreon who have donated $5 or more per video to the show, and I place their names in this mason jar, and I pull out a name for every review I do, and whoever's name I pull out, I just send them a hard copy of the book I'm reviewing, plus a bag of coffee, normally roasted by yours truly, but as of the pandemic and lockdown, roasted by one of the wonderful roasters here in Portland, Oregon, where the coffee is delicious. And it's good to support small business. If you would like to get in on that, you can click on the link below or go to patreon.com/books are better than food and donate $5 or more per video, and I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you very much. $1 or more will get you access to the patron-only reviews, the Discord channel, which is awesome. If you like the stuff on this show, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun there. And the Better Than Friday newsletter that I send out every Friday, which is just 5 different things that I'm interested in at any given time. Could be books in the pipeline, music, films, articles, changes week to week. If you think we have similar taste, I think you'll get a lot of value out of that. There's a bunch of them already listed. Best of luck to all the patrons, and thank you very much. Okay, here we go. Nick AB. Thanks a bunch, Nick. Really appreciate it. You're going to receive The Street of Crocodiles and Other Stories by Bruno Schulz, plus some delicious coffee. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed this, and always remember, bring a book wherever you go. Never know when you'll have 5 or 10 minutes, even less than that. Pretty soon you'll be finishing more books, and you'll be telling people about them. Your life will be enriched. You'll be enriching other people's lives, and you will be staying off of your phone. Most importantly. All right. Thank you very much for watching. Great to see you as always. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Have a good night. Talk to you soon. Ciao.